Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start off by giving all praise, glory, and honor be to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakaha Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, better known as GMS, who we will. Peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect, the tabernacle of David. Started with the 144,000, and the rest of the men, women, and children out of the 12 tribes, whom Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai will have mercy upon. This is your brother Matazabath, reported from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Melbourne, Australia. And I wanted to do a land back off the beloved elder Karate Zabath from the GMS Baltimore camp YouTube handle page, Biblical Defenders. Subscribe so that you may be edified. Now, in the last couple of days, I managed to catch up with a lot of the brethren's videos pertaining to this one individual here whom you see on the screen. All right, that's going around doing videos, chiming in of the situation between us here at Great Millstone and Vocab Malone, and other Israelite camps. And pretty much this cat is just looking for clout. That's pretty much all it is. And my time being in this truth, which I'm still a babe in this truth myself, I'm only 4 years in. I've seen a lot of individuals like this within my 4 years of being in this ministry come in, say the same rhetorical bullshit, try to pick up points and find loopholes with the doctrine of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, and it's all to no avail. Now, this individual who calls himself the Prince of Power, which really he should change it to the Prince of the Unlearned, he's going to make a statement pertaining to the Maccabees conquering the Edomites, but yet being under the treaty of Rome, which we say here at Great Millstone that, yes, indeed, the Romans were Edomites. All right. Now, I'm going to let this play for a little bit over a minute, and you're going to hear that part. And that's where we're going to address that main part of what he stated for edification purposes. And Yahweh Ratazah, this is edifying, and I will try my best through the Spirit, if the Spirit permits, not to make this too long. But there's a lot of things that we have to cover dealing with history in the scriptures. All right, so let's get into it.
You can't be a Moabite and become a Jew. You can't be an Ammonite and become a Jew. You can't be an Edomite and become a Jew. You can be Judaized. You can follow laws. Go back to Hyrcanus in the Josephus. He forced them to keep the laws. So then they started thinking that they were Jews. They didn't make them Jews.
No big deal. So, when you bring that stuff up, what he's mentioning there is the Hasmonean dynasty. All right, when you're reading the book of Maccabees, first Maccabees, second Maccabees, third Maccabees, fourth Maccabees, whatever Maccabees you're reading, they're detailing a lineage of Maccabees who would end up being in rulership after we revolted against the Greeks, and had a victory against them, made a treaty with the Romans. We just and they thought they were Jews, but they're not Jews. They just thought they were Jews. Listen, they ain't think nothing. They were forced into doing that. They were forced into it. It ain't something that they wanted to do. What does that look like? What would that look like? What did it look like with Esther 8:17, where they became Jews? What did that look like? What did it look like when, as the apostle mentioned, that John Hyrcanus, what did it look like first century, second century BC of Christ, where Edomites have been converted and are navigating within Israel, and vice versa. Israel also navigating within Edom, because we had conquered that land. But then the Romans came in and took certain parts, and with our foolishness, and our internal fightings. With all that being said, we're saying, I want you to think about what you're saying, Apostle. You're bringing out that we conquered Edom while while we're under a treaty with Rome. How are you making Rome and Edom? Then you're gonna have to explain how you're making Rome and Edom the same people. If Edom is conquered by Jews and converted in the first century, how are you saying Romans are Edomites? How are you saying Greeks are Edomites? And this is what I'm saying. When you start bringing other stuff out, you got to look at where you're poking other holes at within your doctrine.
And see, that's what I want to focus on. All right. Now he's asking Apostle Tahar, how is it on one hand where, he's saying that we've conquered Edom under that Greek captivity, but then at the same time we ask to make a treaty, a pact with the Romans who are also Edomites, make it make sense, right? So let me take that back again so you can understand, and then we're going to get some precepts and get some history breaking it down what Apostle Tahar was actually saying.
We conquered Edom while while we're under a treaty with Rome. How are you making Rome and Edom? Then you're gonna have to explain how you're making Rome and Edom the same people. If Edom is conquered by Jews and converted in the first century, how are you saying Romans are Edomites? How are you saying Greeks are Edomites? And this is what I'm saying. When you start bringing other stuff out, you got to look at where you're poking other holes at within your doctrine. Research it.
Yeah, see, he's one where he doesn't understand. The apostles, they've went into this many of times, man. They've covered topics like this many of times. Now, although some of those videos may not be on YouTube because a lot of channels have been taken down, okay? The apostles, they have various of different YouTube channels. So there were other YouTube channels where the apostles went over that history of proving that, right? It's just that you do not do your due diligent research, all right? I want to start off with a precept here in the book of Acts, and I bring this out all the time, and it seems to me that this is becoming more evident, all right, as these days goes on. And I want to bring this out real quick in Acts chapter 17, and right around here at verse 11, it says, and I'm going to start at verse 10. And the brethren immediately sent away Paul and Silas by night unto Berea, who coming thither went into the synagogue of the Jews. These were more noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind and search the scriptures daily whether those things were so. Now he keep hopping on the freight train saying that we have to prove to him, we have to show him. We don't have to prove nothing to you, man. Okay. The Bible is clear when the scriptures says, let's get that right here in the Apocrypha, Ecclesiasticus 39 and 24. It says, as his ways are plain unto the holy, so are they stumbling blocks unto the wicked. It's not our job to sit up here. Otherwise, we find ourselves going up against Yahweh Bashem Yahushai when he didn't put a stumbling block upon you for you not to get it. You don't have the spirit of the church of Berea upon you to be able to search the scriptures or to take the things that we say, and then you should be studying to show thyself approved. You should be going into the history of what we bring out, aligning it with the precepts. And then at the end of the day, if the spirit is dealing with you, you have to be fully persuaded within your own mind. You see? So we're going to deal with that. All right. Now, I got pulled up here. Let me bring it up. All right. Let's bring this up. Now, we're going to start here at First Maccabees, the 8th chapter, because see, what you have to understand when you go into this history, yes, Esau, okay, when you deal with let's go to Revelation, the 13th chapter. Okay. Revelation 13 and 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Now, the 7 horns represents the 7 power structures or governments ruled by the Edomites. Okay. And how did Esau, Edom first come into power? Okay. They first came into power via way of the Greeks, which when you go to Daniel, the 8th chapter in the 21st verse, the goat, verse 21, it says, and the rough goat is the king of Grisha, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now, we always go into this. When you look up the word rough, all right, Sha'ar, which is hairy, okay, and we know that Esau, okay, was hairy all over, or red all over like a hairy garment. Not necessarily saying that he was hairy, but he was red all over like a hairy garment, right? Now, when you look up First Maccabees, the 1st chapter, okay, and verse 1, which says, and it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Kittim, and has smitten Darius, the king of the Persians and the Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece. So Alexander the Great was the first king over Greece through his father, Philip the Macedonian. Now, what nationality was Alexander? Now, it tells you he was Macedonian, but what is that according to the biblical nationality? Let's go from there to the book of Addition of Esther, chapter 7, and verse 10. Okay, it says straight to the point. For Amon, going back to Esther, dealing with Mordecai, right? For Amon, who was Mordecai's arch enemy, a Macedonian, the son of Amadatha, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood, okay, and far distant from our goodness, and as stranger received us, okay, because during this time it was as it says here in verse 14. Let's read it. For by these means he thought, finding us destitute of friends, to have translated the kingdom of the Persians to the Macedonians. Now, when you deal with the Persians, go back to Daniel, because Daniel gave the vision. Okay, there was 4 beasts that were said to rule. Now, when you deal with, let's see here, Daniel 7 and 5, it says, and behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side. Okay, because you had the Medes, all right, and then it had 3 ribs in the mouth, which represented the direction that it went, because it came out of the east, so it went northward, southward, and westward. Which, to prove that, this is Daniel 8 and 4. It says, I saw the ram pushing westward, northward, and southward. That represents the 3 ribs. So that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. Now, going back to verse 5, let's read it again. Daniel 7 and 5, and behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, okay, because you had the Persians, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it, and they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. So it became a vast empire, because the Medo-Persian Empire, they had over like 127 provinces. You see, it had over 127 provinces. Okay, so basically, what you got to understand is that this represented the Medo-Persian Empire, and then you had verse 6. After this, I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. This is speaking of the Greco Empire. Okay, the 4 wings of the fowl represents the 4, Alexander's 4 generals, which were Seleucus, Ptolemy, Lacedaemon, and Cassandra. All right, which the kingdom was split to those 4 after the passing of Alexander the Great. So now you go from the Medo-Persian Empire to the Greek Empire, okay, and then the last empire, that 4th beast, was the Romans. So now we understand that Alexander was the first king of the Grecian Empire. He was a Macedonian, which were the Macedonians. All right, now When you deal with Ammon, because he was said to be a Macedonian, go back to Esther, the 3rd chapter. Esther 3:1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Ammedatha, the Agagite. Now, wait a minute. On one hand, it tells you in the Apocrypha that he's a Macedonian, but here in the Old Testament, he's known as an Agagite because the Macedonians were Agagites, right? Now, when you look up the word Agagite, what does it go back to? Real quick. Okay, Agagite. Let's see here. Goes back to the descendant of Agag. Okay. Which Agag, when you go back to Agag, was a king of Amalek. Okay. A title of an Amalekite. Let me see here. Amalekitish kings, right? That's a tongue twister for me. So now when you deal with let's go to Genesis 37 chapter or the 38 chapter, I think it is. Actually, no. Genesis 36, Esau's lineage. Get straight to the point. Genesis 36:11, and the sons of Eliphaz, which was the son of Esau, were Teman, Omar, Zepho, Katam, and Kenaz. And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife. So Amalek, okay, was a descendant of Esau, and he is known also as the chief tribe of Edomite. So the Agagites were Amalekites, which may make them Edomites. And so the Agagites were known as Macedonians. They were Edomites. So the Edomites, and under that 7 head, the 7, which represented the 7 government power structure, the first power structure they came under was the Greek Empire. Started with Alexander the Great, which we call him. Okay, so now to establish it even further, let's go to 1 Maccabees, the 4th chapter. Because when Judas and his brethren were fighting the Greeks, okay, is going to tell you, this is where we get our high holy day, which is due to come in the next couple of weeks, Hanukkah. All right. This is 1 Maccabees. And you can pretty much read this on your time, but for the sake of time, I'm going to drop down verse 59 on down. It says, moreover, Judas and his brethren with the whole congregation of Israel ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their season from year to year by the space of 8 days, from the 25th day of the month of Caselu, with mirth and gladness. And this is going into Hanukkah. And at that time, also they builded up the Mount Zion and high walls and strong towers round about, lest the Gentiles shall come and tread it down as they had done before. Now, this is what it says, verse 61. And they set, meaning the Jews, there a garrison to keep it, and fortified Beshura to preserve it, that the people might have a defense against Idumea, showing you that the Greeks were Idumea, which the word Idumea is the Greek way of saying Edom. They were Edomites. Okay, because we proved who Alexander's lineage goes back to. He was a Macedonian, which the Macedonians were Agagites, which Agagite is a title for an Amalekite king, all right, ruling over the Amalekites, which is the chief tribe of the Edomites. Okay, so now we just established, proving that the Greeks were Edomites. So now let's go from there and let's get the understanding. All right, and Salakia, these ads popping up. What the hell going on here? All right. This doesn't want to. All right, let me just do this then. Let's refresh it. Salakia. And let's go to 1 Maccabees in the GNT, the 8th chapter. And we're going to start at the top. All right. Now it says here, Judas had heard about the Romans and their reputation as a military power, and he knew that they welcomed all those who joined them as allies, and that those who came to them could be sure of the friendship of Rome. So now, because he asked in the video to explain, which we explained how Edom were the Greeks, but explain how Esau was also the Romans. Well, because when you go back to Daniel, okay, they didn't just rule as the I keep wanting to say Greco-Roman Empire, but they didn't rule only as the Greeks. When you read verse 7, after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stampede the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the other beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. This is going into the ancient Roman Empire. Okay, it had iron teeth because of its military, which is military. When you look it up, they took a little bit from the Babylonian Empire, the Medo-Persian Empire, and that's why they were a vast empire themselves. All right. Now, when it says it stamped the residue with the feet of it, meaning everywhere that they conquered, they set up tributaries. All right. Which also Elder Yashawamba always goes into this. They have what was called back then vassal states. All right. It says, and it was diverse from all the other beasts that were before it and had 10 horns. Right. Because what made it diverse, every other empire outside of the ancient Roman Empire, they all had kings. OK. And then the kings would pass the kingdom down to whoever was the next of heir. Right. But when it came with the Romans, when you get First Maccabees, the 8th chapter, they had what was called a Senate. All right. And they established one man every year to pretty much be as the spokesperson of that country, of the people, much like what we have today. That's why you have something that's called a president or a prime minister. All right. But now let's get back to this. So First Maccabees 8:1. Let's take our time with this. It says, Judas had heard about the Romans and their reputation as a military power. He knew that they welcomed all those who joined themselves as allies, and that those who came to them could be sure of the friendship of Rome. And people had told him about the wars the Romans had fought and their heroic acts among the Gauls, whom they had conquered and forced to pay taxes. He had been told what they had done in Spain when they captured the silver mines and the gold mines there. By careful planning and persistence, they had conquered the whole country, even though it was far from Rome. And they had overcome the kings from distant lands who had fought against them, and they had defeated them so badly that the survivors had to pay annual taxes. They had fought and conquered Philip and Persis, kings of Macedonia, and all who had joined them against Rome. Okay. Now, here's the thing. We're going to stop here. We're going to come back because he asks, how can we prove that the Romans were Edom? Well, when you go to Matthew, the 3rd chapter, or is it 2nd chapter? Right. Matthew 2:1. Now, when Yahushua was born, because this was during the time of ancient Rome, it says, now when Yahushua was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east of Jerusalem. Now, Herod the king, okay, when you look him up, all right, Herod was the son, or Herod the Great was the son of Antipater of Idumea, okay, because you had Edomites that were in control of Rome. Not just the Roman Empire, but also the king of Judea. Now, this comes via way of a man named John Hyrcanus, which let's grab that. Now, this is from Wiseman Charles, who is Esau Edom. All right. So I'm going to read the middle passage here real quick to get some secular history. It says John Hyrcanus, because he mentioned him in the video, conquered the whole of Edom and undertook the forced conversion of its inhabitants to Judaism, which really it should be to our law, statutes, commandments as Israelites. All right. Because we didn't make up Judaism. Esau did. And you can find this in Josephus of Antiquities. All right. And there's the chapter where you can view it. Now, Salakia, it goes on to say, thenceforth, the Edomites became a section of the Ish people, mainly the Israelites. It says, thus, at this juncture of time, the Edomites were then incorporated with the Israelite nation, and their country was called by the Greeks and Romans Idumea. All right, then they have here Mark 3, 8. Ptolemy Geography, verse 16. But the tide turned in favor of the Edomite faction when Julius Caesar made Antipater an Edomite. You see that? Julius Caesar, one of the emperors, okay, or Caesar, I should say, Salakia for the slip of the tongue, made Antipater an Edomite, procreator of Judea in 47 BC. Julius Caesar was an Edomite himself. It says, when Antipater was killed 4 years later, his son Herod gained power but was rejected by the Judites, right? Because he wasn't an Israelite. That's why he was rejected. Herod shrewdly gained the support of Rome. Why? Because they were the same fucking people, man. All right. And it was that time. That's why we're reading the history in First Maccabees, the 8th chapter. Why? Because that fourth beast, pursuant to Daniel, the 7th chapter, had to come in his stead. It said, with a Roman army at his heels, he returned to Palestine, and after a 6-month siege, he captured Jerusalem, became king of Judea in 37 BC, man. There you go. All right. So now when you read down, it says the land was not the kingdom of Judah, but the nation of the Jews, Judeans. Historically, the Edomites became known as Jews, a term derived from Judea, which was derived from the name Judah being the royal line of Israel, though they were never of Judah or Israel. Right. Then you have during Titus' siege of Jerusalem. All right. Which that's during the time when they took that down. Now, I want to stop there because I'm going to come back to this because it's all going to tie into the bigger picture. Now, we need to go back here because this is important. First Maccabees 8 and 6, it says they had even defeated Antiochus or Antiochus the Great, or Antiochus Epiphanes, king of Syria, who attacked them with 120 elephants, cavalry chariots, and a powerful army. Because keep in mind, Antiochus, he was under that Seleucus line, all right, and basically he was been considered a Greek, a Macedonian. He was an Edomite, okay. And it's telling you that the Edomites of Rome defeated, all right, the Edomites under Antiochus, his army, that is. Verse 7, they took him alive, meaning the Edomite Romans took Antiochus and his army alive and forced him and his successors to pay heavy taxes, to give hostages, and to surrender. India, Media, Lydia, and some of their best lands, they took these and gave them to King Eumenes. And when the Greeks made plans to attack and destroy them, the Romans learned of their plans and sent a general to fight against them. And the Romans killed many of the Greeks, meaning their own people, took their wives and children captive, plundered their possessions, occupied their land, tore down their fortresses, and made them slaves as they are today. And they also destroyed or made slaves of other kingdoms, the islands, and everyone who have fought against them. All right. And that's what it meant when it said in Daniel, the 7th chapter, they had iron teeth. They had a vast military. OK, and they stampede the residue, meaning everyone else that they took down, they made to pay them taxes and tributaries. Verse 12, but they maintained their friendship with their allies and those who relied on them for protection. And they conquered kings near and far, and everyone who heard of their reputation was afraid of them. And they helped some men to become kings while they disposed others. They have become a world power. OK, notice it says they helped some men to become kings. We read that Antipater, son Herod, he became a king. All right. Julius Caesar made him a king. We just read it. Go back and read it again. Maybe you missed it. It says, but the tide turned in favor of the Edomite faction when Julius Caesar made Antipater an Edomite, procreator of Judea in 47 BC. And when Antipater was killed 4 years later, his son Herod gained power, but was rejected by the Judites. It says Herod shrewdly gained the support of Rome. OK, there you have it. So the scripture, see, history matches up with the prophecy, the scriptures. Verse 14, in spite of all this, no Roman ever tried to advance his own position by wearing a crown or putting on royal robes. They created a senate, and each day 320 senators came together to deliberate about the affairs of the people and their well-being. Each year they entrusted to one man the responsibility of governing them and controlling their whole territory. Everyone obeyed this one man, and there was no envy or jealousy among them. And this is where it says in Daniel 7, going back there, verse 7, where it talks about it was diverse from all the other beasts that were before it. That's what it means. Because unlike the other empires, they all had a king. But when it came time to the Romans, they dedicated that responsibility to one man through a senate. That's what made them diverse through all the other empires. All right. That's the precept there. But continuing on, dropping down verse 17, Judas chose Polymus, the son of John and grandson of Achas, and Jason, son of Eleazar, and sent them to Rome to make a treaty of friendship and alliance with the Romans. Why? Because you read it at the start. Okay, they had a reputation as a military power. Okay, and they had a good friendship with their allies. That's why the Israelites during this time, or the Jews, I should say, they wanted to make a treaty. So when you ask the question and say, oh, well, how can you conquer the Edomites? On the one hand, which we read in First Maccabees, the 4th chapter, they put garrisons in Idumea, but also we read in history that John Hyrcanus did force them, right? Well, guess what? At the same token, you had Edomites, okay, under the they were ruling in Rome because Rome had to come up in power. Now, during that time, what you got to understand, before the Edomite Romans took us down, we made a treaty with them. OK, but now let's go back to that. It says during Titus' siege of Jerusalem, 66 and 70 AD, 20,000 Idumeans appeared before Jerusalem to fight in behalf of the Zealots who were besieging the temple. So you had Edomites that actually did help us, right? It says about 97,000 inhabitants of Judea were taken captive, and an unknown number have fled either before or during the siege. Now, one thing I also want to mention, because when you deal with prophecy, let's go to Daniel, the 9th chapter. Daniel 9 and 27, because this is referring to the ancient Roman Empire. It says, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. All right. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Now, what did Yahushua say? Showing you that this was dealing with the ancient Roman Empire. Okay. Let's see here. This is Luke. And I might just be reading over it. Give me a second. Do I want that one? Maybe I want this one. Yeah, I want this one. Let's get Matthew 24 and 15. Now check this out. Matthew 24 and 15 says, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, going back to Daniel the 9th chapter, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. All right. Scripture says, blessed is he who readeth. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Why? This is the time of the Lord's vengeance. OK, this is during the time of the temple being sacked by Titus Vespasian. OK, during that time between 66 and 70 AD. That's why he said, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Now, let's get a little commentary. Let me see here. Now, this is from Gill's exposition of the entire Bible, and I'm going to just take the meat from the bone. Now, it says here, let me skip down. It says, let's see here. For this is not for 1 week only, but forever. But this is to be interpreted of the Roman people, spoken of in the latter part of the preceding verse, dealing with Daniel 9 and 27, who, in order to accomplish their design to destroy the city and the temple of Jerusalem, made peace with many nations, enter into a covenant and an alliance with them, particularly the Medes, the Parthians, the Armenians, even us, the Israelites, which we read in First Maccabees, the 8th chapter, for the space of 1 week, or 7 years, as it appears they did at the beginning of this week. Okay. Then it goes on to say, and in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, the daily sacrifice of the Jews and all their other offerings, and which was literally fulfilled in a half part of this week, as it may be rendered towards the close of the latter half of it, when the city of Jerusalem, being closely besieged by Titus, was through the closeness of the siege, the divisions of the people, and the want both of time and men and beasts to offer the daily sacrifice cease, as Josephus says, to the great grief of the people, nor have the Jews ever since the destruction of their city and temple offered any sacrifice, esteeming it unlawful so to do in a strange land. All right. It says, for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate. That is, the Roman people shall make the land of Judea desolate, which they did, for the overspreading of their abomination or idolatries in it. All right. The words may be rendered as by some upon the winged battlements of the temple. And you can go more into this, but I'm just giving you, I'm trying to just set the background stage so that you can put everything together. So what we have on one end is when you deal with First Maccabees, the 8th chapter, it goes into showing you that the Edomite Romans, they actually took down the Greek Edomites. Okay. They took down Antiochus. Okay. When you read verse 6. Because it was their time to come in power. So when you ask the question, how can we have conquered Edom and Greece, but make a treaty with Romans? Because he's trying to make it sound like if you guys or the apostle is saying that we've conquered Edom, in his mind, he's thinking that, well, if you conquer Edom, you conquer the whole nation. Well, no. We were being under that Greek captivity, the Jews that were in the land. OK, they were suffering like hell under Antiochus Epiphanes and also Ptolemy, because both men, OK, they put out a decree that all the Jews shall leave their laws. Matter of fact, let's grab that. OK, let's get First Maccabees 1 and 40. Let's read this one first. 41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people. All right. They tried to establish a new world order back then. It says, and everyone shall leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath. And for the king has sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, and set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, and to the end that they may forget the law and change all the ordinances. And whosoever will not do according to the commandment of the king, he says he shall die. Now, when you go to Second Maccabees, the 6th chapter, all right, because once again, when you read from verse 1 to verse 7, this Antiochus sent an old man to Athens to compel the Jews, right? But when you read through all of that, or what he got the Jews to do, read verse 8, which says, moreover, there went out a decree to the neighboring cities of the heathen by the suggestion of Ptolemy. So it wasn't only just Antiochus, but it was also Ptolemy, against the Jews, that they shall observe the same fashions and be partakers of their sacrifices. And whoso would not conform themselves to the manners of the Gentiles should be put to death. Then might a man have seen the present misery. So those Jews during that time period, they were in present misery under Antiochus' rule. OK, and Ptolemy put hell on them, too. And so that's why Judas and his brethren, OK, were risen up to have those wars and taking them down. That's why we have the high holy day Hanukkah, First Maccabees, the 4th chapter. But when you jump to First Maccabees, the 8th chapter, it's going into the history showing you that, yes, we made a treaty and a pact with those Edomites from Rome. OK, which those Edomites from Rome fought the Edomites from Greece. They fought the Greek Edomites. because we only force converted those Edomites through John Hyrcanus under that Greek captivity. But guess what? How do you think Herod became king of Judea? Even when he married into the Hasmonean dynasty. All right. Because they took on the practices and thought themselves to be Israelites, man, which they wasn't Israelites. OK, and that's a whole nother topic for a different time. But the point of the matter is this, and we'll close out. All right. Understand that when the apostle said that, yes, we conquered Edom, he was saying in the sense of during the time of the Greek Empire. OK, when Judas and his brethren fought those different wars. OK, for our people. Right. Under that time period, yes, we conquered them. But during the time in First Maccabees, the 8th chapter, which we read, go and read it yourself. Judas understood the fame of the Romans in terms of how they dealt through their vast military power and how they treated their allies. So they thought, hey, we should strengthen ourselves, okay, with these people, man. Okay. But eventually it didn't work out for us because what? They ended up when you go into prophecy, what did the Roman Edomites do to us? OK, they broke the covenant, that treaty that they had with us. And then they ended up sacking the temple anyway, man, because why? Prophecy had to be fulfilled, as we read in Luke, the 21st chapter, and also Matthew, the 24th chapter, man. It's just that easy. Oh, well, how can you sit up there and say you conquered Edom through John Hyrcanus, but then you made a treaty with Edom? Edom, that doesn't make it, because you listen. We already know what's going on, and see, people like this, they'll say certain things, all right, to try to manipulate your brain and ask all these type of weird questions that they themselves don't even understand. When all he simply had to do was go into the history and match it up with the precepts, which is what we just did, man. OK, so that's pretty much it. I'm going to leave it at that. And I tried to keep it as short as I possibly could. But I know it was a lot of information to be brought out. Lord's will, you were edified. Giving all praise, glory, and honor be to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Kahakodash. Double honors to the beloved apostles and elders of Great Millstone, better known as GMS, who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect, and so on to the next Lord's will. Shalom.